Picture the frozen Scandinavian night, 1,000 years before modern heating, where survival meant understanding fire not as a fleeting comfort, but as something you could store, bank, and stretch across the long dark. The Vikings knew something that would echo through centuries. Heat doesn't have to burn continuously to sustain life. While popular imagination envisions roaring hearths consuming endless timber, the reality of northern survival demanded far greater ingenuity. Though the elaborate underground sleeping flame system, often attributed to Vikings, lacks solid archaeological evidence, the fundamental principle they mastered, thermal mass as a heat battery, was very real, and it would save lives in trenches half a world away. The Vikings understood what modern survivalists rediscover in the wilderness. Stone remembers fire. In their longhouses, heated stones placed around central hearths absorbed tremendous thermal energy during evening fires, then radiated warmth through bitter nights. This wasn't the mythical underground pit system sometimes described, but rather strategic stone placement combined with thick turf walls that trapped every precious calorie of heat. The Langelder, or long fire, burned down the center of the hall, while massive stones positioned nearby soaked up temperatures reaching hundreds of degrees. When the flames died to embers, these thermal batteries continued their work, releasing stored heat for hours. This principle, capture, store, release, would prove essential when European soldiers found themselves freezing in the waterlogged trenches of the Great War. The Western Front introduced horrors that history had never witnessed at such scale, but cold remained an ancient enemy. Soldiers crouched in mud-slicked ditches carved through French and Belgian soil discovered that textbook tactics meant nothing against hypothermia. Official supply lines provided braziers and dugout stoves, but, fuel was scarce and fires drew sniper attention. In the desperate calculus of survival, men reached back to pre-industrial knowledge. Some had grandfathers who remembered heating bricks by the fire to warm beds on winter nights. Others came from rural communities where fieldcraft wasn't hobby but necessity. So these soldiers began adapting thermal mass principles to trench warfare. They would scavenge bricks from shattered farmhouses, heat them in concealed fires during daylight hours, when, smoke dispersed more easily, then wrap them in whatever cloth remained, whether it was torn sandbags or pieces of uniform, and position them in dugouts or beneath ground sheets. The bricks held their heat for hours, providing warmth without the constant fuel consumption and, the dangerous light signature of open flames. This wasn't romantic bushcraft. It was honestly grim mathematics. A man who stayed warm could function. A man who couldn't would succumb to trench foot, frostbite, or the pneumonia that really stalked the front like an invisible sniper. What these soldiers reinvented, often without knowing its ancient precedent, was in fact the same thermal storage that northern peoples had perfected centuries before. The principle transcends culture and century because, physics remains constant. Heat moves from hot to cold. Dense materials with high specific heat capacity, stone, brick, water, absorb and release energy slowly. A 10-pound rock heated to 300 degrees and insulated properly can radiate usable warmth for 6 to 8 hours. For a Viking family or a soldier in a frozen dugout, this meant the difference between sleep and shivering exhaustion. The Great War's survivors carried these lessons home, and the knowledge filtered into the survival manuals that would prepare the next generation. By World War II, military field guides explicitly taught heated stone techniques for cold weather survival. The Dakota fire hole, a concealed, efficient burning method, combined with thermal mass principles, became standard training. What began as desperate improvisation in 1916 became doctrine by 1944. Today, as we practice bushcraft in forests and fields, we're walking in the footsteps of both ancient seafarers and desperate soldiers. The heated stone technique isn't merely a nod to nostalgia, it's elemental wisdom that works as reliably now as it did back then. Truly fascinating, isn't it? Understanding how to capture and store heat, how to make fire work harder and longer, how to survive when resources are scarce. These skills connect us to an unbroken chain of human resilience, stretching back through muddy trenches to smoke-filled longhouses, to the first human who realized embers could be banked and revived. If you value this kind of knowledge, if you understand that history's hardest lessons become tomorrow's essential skills, subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles. Share this with someone who needs to know that survival wisdom isn't invented, it's remembered. The flame beneath the snow still burns if we're wise enough to tend it.